Most people arrive at the carnivore way of life through illness, debilitation, disability, sickness, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, I am not any different in that respect. People deal with that past trauma or even present trauma if someone is still going through that currently or still, getting their health back on this journey in many different ways. Many different ways. Some people never ever get through it and they are left permanently traumatized. They view themselves as inferior in contrast to that triumphant tribulation. However, of the people that do triumph over that tribulation themselves, people learn a lot through that experience, and it changes them in many different ways. And it varies depending on the individual, but it changed me in one particular way. And that is, it opened my eyes to how much chaos surrounded me. It made me uncomfortable and really unaccepting of how much chaos there was around me. Now, what do I mean by that? What does that actually mean? Growing up, I didn't really care too much about anything. I had a messy room, a disorganized room. I didn't pick up after myself. I didn't really care to do that. It didn't bother me. I knew where things were, but I was like this in general. What your room looks like, it is said that that's a representation of what's going on in your mind, and therefore how you think about many different things. And that's how I was. I would not complete all of my homework going to school. While I was going to school, I wouldn't care too much about doing the best I could in my classes. I was just there to have a fun time. I thought of myself as immortal as well, and I've spoken about this before. One of the things that happened is whenever I came down with my condition of hypermobile EDS at 16 years old and desperately was attempting to discover what that problem was, what was wrong with me, I started to realize just how fragile life is and just how fast things can change. And it's a scary experience. But the irony is that it took me years after that. It still took me years after coming down with that condition to really crack down on the chaos around me. You see, when you can't control your own body and what's going on with you, you can't even identify the problems that you're having. After checking off every single box, you start to panic a bit. We as human beings are not creatures that admire or appreciate large amounts of chaos and noise. We're not a species that enjoys that. Okay, we are designed to establish order. We're designed to figure out the universe and discover the underlying logic of it. That's why we don't like ambiguity. We're not fans of that. We want to find an answer, even if that answer is not very correct, because at least it sets your sights on something and it gives you some sort of purpose and it gives you a goal. You can see something at the end of that tunnel, even if that ending isn't in this case, correct one. And whenever your life gets so chaotic, whenever everything around you falls apart, and the most important thing to you falls apart, which is your own stability, your own bodily stability, you start to realize how chaotic the universe around you actually is. Wow, this is how fine the distinction is between functional order and chaos. And it was at 18 years old that I finally came to this realization. And funnily enough, I started to unconsciously clean up my room. I started to make sure that everything was in the specific spot that it was supposed to be in. And the reason for that, I've now come to understand after many years of reflection, was because that was a self-defense mechanism by my own body, my brain, to establish some sort of functional order. Because if I can't control my own body, well, I might as well control everything around me that I can control. And so that not only started to manifest itself in the material world, but also the abstract world, I started to wake up to how much I didn't know. We think that we're so intelligent. We always know that the most ignorant people among us are the ones that are the loudest. Okay? And there's a reason for that. It's because they are not aware of how much chaos is around them. It's myopia. It's an epidemic of myopia. And I was forced to reconcile and really confront the fact that I was also one of those people. That's the first step, is acceptance and appreciation. And so I recognized that I did not know nearly as much as I thought I did. Now, of course, why would I have any other realization than that one whenever I can't even figure out the problems that I'm dealing with? I can't even figure out what is plaguing me. And so, after months and months of studying what I thought to be science, which was human nutrition, and then subsequently afterwards realizing that that wasn't science at all, but realizing that the fundamentals of science are what you can use to synthesize a conclusion as to what we ought to be doing and what we ought not to be doing, how we ought to be eating and living, how we ought not to be eating and living. I had a voracious appetite for studying those things and understanding them thoroughly, like the back of my hand. And it was precisely to establish as much order as I possibly could. I finally recognized the importance of understanding the universe around me so that I can actually cut through that noise and arrive at conclusions of the highest veracity and integrity and of the highest robustness that are as fortitudinous as possible. I did this, as I discussed yesterday, in my book, Contraindicated, which is precisely designed to do exactly that. It's designed to take people through that journey, the same journey that I was forced to go through. Fortunately, there's always a silver lining to misfortune. You just have to find it if you don't see it. And so I decided that that was what I was going to make my life goal. That is my life goal, is to establish order in places of chaos. And another way of saying that is to cut through the noise, to eliminate noise, to find a strong signal. And so if you are someone that is plagued by that recognizes all of this chaos around you, but you haven't quite gotten to the exact methods of establishing the most functional order that you can in the health space, figuring out what we are supposed to eat, what we are not supposed to eat, what do I do to benefit myself to the greatest degree possible, then I have something for you. There's frankly too much noise in the health space. There's a lot of opinions, there's a lot of claims, but there's not enough rigor. If you've ever found yourself wondering, where's the integrity? Where's the intellectual honesty? What does the evidence actually say? Then you and I are probably wired much the same way. For me, health isn't something I can afford to take an impetuous approach to. That's why I'm dedicated to the disciplined pursuit of truth. That means questioning assumptions, understanding mechanisms, and being willing to change my mind when the evidence demands it. Now, I've been thinking about building a community around this very mindset. Not just for carnivore people, I know that not everyone is there yet, but for people who value veracity over popularity, who want to explore health through the lens of evolutionary biology, biochemistry, statistics, and critical thinking, without bias, ego, or dogma. The question is, are there enough of us to make this worth building? That's why I'm asking for a simple show of hands. There's a link below. It will take less than a minute to register your interest. There's no payment, there's no commitment at this stage, just a signal that this is something that you want to be a part of. And if there is enough interest, then I'll invite a small group to join as founding members. You'll help shape the direction, the standards, and the values of this community. And you'll also get the lowest price that it will ever offer, locked in for life, as long as you remain a member in good standing. All I'd ask in return is your honest feedback, your integrity, because if we build this, I don't want it to just exist. I want it to stand for something. So if this speaks to you, you got to click the link below and raise your hand. Let's see if there are enough people to make this real.